Hi, everybody. Welcome to another session of the collective series From Darkness to Radiance. I'm RivkaLeah. I just want to remind everybody I am not a doctor or a therapist or a counselor, and everything I talk about are my experiences or, like today, experiences of my close friends, Nesto. And so I want everybody to understand that before we go forward.
Okay.
And some of you may remember Nesto from our last conversation, and I had asked him to join me again. We talked about a little bit about his trauma last time and how it's influencing his entrepreneurial journey. And this time I had wanted to have him back to kind of go a little bit deeper into his uh, trauma. He said that he was willing to share a little bit of that with everybody. So I would like everybody to again welcome Nesto. And I did it again. And I told him I wasn't going to do it. So now I think that's going to become our little thing. His name is going to be
Mhm.
now Nestu, not Nesto, Nestu Tatunay. So welcome, Nesto.
Glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
So I actually did that one on purpose because
Yeah,
I just was laughing so much last time. So I
yeah.
enjoyed our
You just
conversation.
like to
So
see me blush. That's all. It's all good.
so thank you for being here.
Okay.
I'm going to start, and we did talk briefly about this. That it is about your trauma. So please feel free to take any breaks that you need, and go as far as you want. I'm not going to push you in any way.
Mhm.
But if you would share briefly your personal experience with trauma and how it's affected your life.
Well, my trauma is I was married to a narcissist for over 25 years. And it was difficult because there were times, well, basically all the time, I felt like whatever I did was never good enough. And me being the person I am, we had 3 children together, and I felt like I was stuck. I didn't, even though my mind told me that this wasn't a good relationship for me, I stayed because of my kids, because I grew up as part of a broken family. And, my mother and my father got divorced when I was 5. And after my mother left, I had to be the one to pick up the slack for my father, or for my mother not being there and to help my father out. So I became responsible at a very young age, not just for myself, but for my siblings as well. And so, when I had this thing in my mind, I was like, you know what? When I get married, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it work. And I spent over 25 years trying my best to make things work, even though I knew in my heart that the person that I was with, I just wasn't meant to be with her. And it's just, you know, uh, people just, people just collide, and it may work for, a few years, but after a while, it just continued to escalate and get worse. And there was no way out of it, other than taking an honest look at myself and realizing, I've supported this family for so long, and I need to stop thinking about them so much and really focus on myself. And so, yeah, so you know, it's been a while, but we've been divorced, and I've been dealing with it. And honestly, I'm happier than I've ever been. And you know, I've, I'm just, I feel that getting out of that situation, as hard as it's been, it was the right thing to do. And, I hung on there for the last few years just for the sake of my kids, because I didn't want my kids to feel how I felt after my mom and dad got divorced, because there was a lot of built up resentment and loneliness. And I felt at the time there was a bunch of undue responsibility put on me. And, I didn't want my kids to go through that.
Right.
So,
I think that's very admirable. And I hear that a lot with survivors that I've spoken to is they stay because they want their children to have the family experience, and it's easier for them as adults to take on dealing with the continued trauma so that their children can at least have a full family,
Right.
and then moving on when the children are old enough to understand
That's exactly
the
right.
whole dynamic.
Yes.
So I think that's great that you were able to handle it like that.
Hmm.
Um, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced? Because I mean, you are clearly on your healing journey. I don't believe that anyone is ever truly healed, even if you haven't had a specific trauma per se. I think everybody is on a journey to make themselves better. So, have you experienced any challenges?
Of course. I mean, it's so hard. I mean, it's a transition, going from that to, um, to where I'm at now. I think the biggest challenge that I have now is, with my children. Even though they understand why I did it, and they've even told me, "Yeah, Dad, it's a good thing that you and Mom, got divorced because, you just didn't belong together." It's been difficult for me because, she or they feel like they're stuck in the middle, and I think, they feel like they have to take sides, and it's hard for me because, I've always been the nurturing one, the calm one, and she's been the opposite, and that's just it is what it is, and I had hoped for more communication, and even before this all happened, I had sat them all down at dinner and I had talked to them about what was happening, because I didn't want them to feel like they were being abandoned or anything like that. But I just needed to do this for myself because I just couldn't be in that relationship anymore. And even though they said they understood, you know, uh, being in that situation where your parents are apart and you have to figure out, okay, do I want to stay with Mom or do I want to stay with Dad? Things like that. So that part has been very difficult for me. And I just continue every day to try to continue to be me, and get in touch with them and just tell them I love them, and tell them that I'll always be here for them. Um, but because of the way things are on that side, I think there's a lot of negative talk, and I've done my best to not do that from my side, and I just let the kids decide. Hey, give them the time that they need,
Right.
to come around, and you know and I just feel like over time it'll get better. But that's been my biggest challenge because I've always been there with them every day in and day out. And it's been months where, I mean, we see each other every once in a while, but not nearly as much as we used to. And it's, it hurts,
It
but
hurts.
because of the situation, um, I understand where they're coming from. And even though I'm literally just a couple of miles from where they're living, because I'm not there, I'm sure they have feelings of abandonment a little bit, and but it's like I said, time will tell, and I'm hopeful that that time will eventually bring us closer.
Right. Well, and I think too, as children get older, I mean, it sounds like your children are a little older now, so they have the ability to understand. And,
Mhm.
regardless of which parent ends up leaving the home, there may be a little bit of abandonment, but that also then gives the children the perspective of, well, now I can kind of understand why
Mhm.
it didn't work out, even though they knew a little bit.
Mhm.
But as they continue to get older and they get into relationships of their own, I think more and more understanding comes, even if they're not in a bad, heaven forbid, they're in, a bad relationship. Even a good relationship, they'll understand.
Mhm.
This is a good relationship now. Oh, I get it now.
Yes,
Now I see that, they weren't happy and I want happiness for both of them.
that's right. That's,
So I think that those feelings will subside a little bit. So I can definitely see how you're struggling with that, and it's tough.
yes.
So I give you a lot of credit for being able to talk about it.
Thank you.
So um, Let's see here. So, going along with that theme, can you talk a little bit about any specific coping mechanisms or strategies that you've kind of implemented to deal with the trauma?
You know, I have several. The biggest thing that for me is my friend group, my collective group of friends. They all know my situation, and anytime I need to talk to any of them, they always make themselves readily available. There's been times where I'll call one or two of them and I'll just be crying, just trying to deal with all of it, you know. And to know that you have people that support you, and then you're not alone in all this, it goes a long way, especially for me because I've always had my kids around me, and now that I don't have them around me all the time, now I have my collective group of friends that are always there and support me 100%, and that's great. Another thing is I do a lot of meditation, something I never even considered before because I thought it was, I just didn't believe in it, so I never did it. But once my mind would race or my mind would have negative thoughts, the only way I could clear that is if I actually sat and meditated and did everything I can to just, to just clear my mind. Because once those negative thoughts get in your mind, sometimes they just take over. And so anytime I would start to feel that, I just meditate. I make it a habit of doing that a lot. And the third thing that I really do is I read. There's a book that's become kind of like my Bible, and it's called The Game of Life and How to Play It.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I think it's by Anne Skolvashin.
Yes.
And that book to me, I mean, I've read it countless times, over and over, just because the words in it actually soothe me, and it makes me realize that yes, even though I'm hurting, even though I'm going through all of this, that as long as I believe that it's going to be okay, and as long as I know that I'm doing things to continue to improve my life, that everything will be okay. It just takes time, and you have to manifest it. You have to manifest the good days. You have to be confident and know that there's a higher power out there that wants the best for you, no matter what situation you're going through. And that book really reinforces that for me.
That's fabulous. I hear a recurring theme with everyone that I talk to that has come through some sort of trauma, that whether they get rid of the old toxic friends or people that were in their lives, but everyone that I have spoken to now has a very good core group of people
Yes,
around them.
absolutely. It's
And
necessary.
that is really, really powerful
Yes, it
to
is.
help pull through.
I
And
don't.
I've also found that as someone who's survived something, having those people around is something that survivors did not have
Hmm.
during the trauma.
Hmm.
So, I mean, some of these people may have been there during it, but the whole dynamic changes because the survivor themselves changes.
That's right.
So, and to see that you're implementing all the self-care, I know, as you know, here at the collective, I advocate self-care. I
Mhm.
talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're doing the meditation, because I just had a talk recently about violence in communication,
Yes.
and all that negative self-talk in your head is violent communication to yourself. So the
Yes.
fact that you're using this self-care to take care of that is absolutely amazing.
Yes. And I just want to reiterate, the fact that I had my friend group really was crucial for me because, I could have read, I could have meditated, but there's nothing like having a group that supports you 100% with no judgment. They're there for you. And to me, that was invaluable.
That's perfect. Perfect. And I think more people need to hear that. I really feel that, sometimes survivors, because they've come through things, it's hard to continue to trust. And again, even if those people were already in your life, it's you don't want to feel like you're burdening them. And so it's difficult. So the fact that you are doing this and they're there for you and no judgment is huge. And I kudos to all of your friends that are there for you.
Thank you.
So
I
you're very,
actually,
very fortunate.
I have a friend. His name's Jeff. We've known each other since college, and he went through the same situation I'm going through a couple of years ago. And because of the way my marriage was, we had lost contact for years. I mean, we talked to each other every once in a while, but we would never actually hang out or anything like that because of the way things were at home.
Right.
I didn't want to be bringing my drama to him, and it was just bad. But after the divorce, he and I reconnected, and he was really um, my first friend that really stepped up and said, "Listen, I've been through what you're going through. I'll be here for you if you need me, and like I always have, and I got your back. And if you need to stay over at my place for whatever reason, dude, my house is your house. We're boys. I'll always have your back." And there was a few nights I actually had, "Hey Jeff, man, I'm coming over right now." He's like, "Come on over." So stuff like that is it's just having those kinds of friends that are willing to be there for you. It makes it makes everything that you're going through. It makes it more bearable because
Right.
you know that you have somebody that you can lean on, or people that you can lean on when you just feel like you can't. And
Right. And I love that you're sharing this because that's what I would really love the collective to be is people that come into the community share so that others can help support them because some people unfortunately don't have a Jeff in their life
right.
that will say, "Hey, come on over." But if you can come into the collective, and I know you've been in there and commenting, and people support one another, so I appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah.
So you're paying it forward, definitely.
Glad to do it.
So let's see. I have a couple more questions for you because I
Okay.
know I kept you a really long time last time,
Oh, no, it's
but
okay.
I'm
I
not going to keep
enjoyed
you
it.
quite as long this time. Let's see here. What else do I have? How has your experience with trauma impacted your relationships with your family? You touched a little bit about that with your kids and then some friends or significant others.
It's funny because um, I've had so much support um, coming out of this. Support from family members and friends that I haven't talked to in years. And they found out that it happened, and they contact me and they tell me, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." My siblings, they know the kind of person I am. They know that regardless of whatever narcissistic smear campaign is happening, on their side or on the other side, they know me and they say, "Look, you'll always be my brother. We know what kind of person you are. We know that, you know, um, you know, all the stuff that's being said, it's not even important to us. It doesn't make a difference whether it's true or not. They have my back, and it's good to know that I have this support with my family and my friends, and I'm in a new relationship now with my business partner, and she has been um, Marissa. She has been um, God, I can't even explain it. She's been a rock for me, and whenever I close up and I don't have the words, she helps me find them, and she brings me peace, and not like any peace that I've ever had before. So that's why I know that she's she's the one for me because nobody has ever made me have that kind of peace, and it made me want to become a better person. And coming out of this, it really helps if you have that because people like her make people like me continue to look forward and not backward. And because when you dwell on the past, it holds you back. When you keep looking to the future with someone like her, everything is bright, and I can't wait for it all to happen. You know.
Beautiful. And I just want to touch a little bit in case anyone is listening. I did speak with Marissa also. There is, if you look around out there, I do have a little interview with her as well. So people can kind of listen to Marissa's story as well. And she said just as many wonderful things about you, Nesto. So I wanted to ask a little bit more. Have you found that when you meet new people, and whether you become friends with them or not, that you get more of a sense of a person now after coming through that?
Yes, and it's incredible because I never noticed it before. You know, I I went to Insight, and it's Insight is this conference that really helps you find yourself and find what you're all about, and help you get rid of the baggage that you've been carrying around. And so when I left there, and just talking to people that um, from that conference, and talking to Marissa, you know, it's funny because in the past, whenever I would see people like that, I would just blow it off and not even think about it. You know, okay, maybe they want to talk to me or whatever. But when I meet somebody that's shows like, um, characteristics of a narcissist, I recognize it right away. And it doesn't even have to be the same exact traits that, you know, my former spouse had. I can recognize them right away. And I can determine, you know what, that person, I'll keep them at arm's length. Or if somebody's talking about their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, I can recognize right away when they're telling me about it. I'm like, oh yeah, they're a narcissist, just because I'm aware of it now. And um, it's amazing how that, I guess I'm just, my senses about it are a lot more keen. And, I think because of that, it'll actually help me to continue to bring people that are good for me in my life and avoid people that are like that. Right. So it's almost like a defense mechanism for me. And I'm
Right.
so glad that, I'm, I have that superpower now.
That is a huge superpower that, unfortunately, that's why people fall into patterns of being with the same person over and over and over, the same type of person, I
Yeah.
should say,
Yes.
because they recognize it on one level, but they don't recognize it on the full level, that it's the same person. It may be a different physical person, but they're all
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
So yeah. So kind of along with that, one of my other questions, and I apologize, I tried to have all my questions in front of me, but then I had a technical thing. So I kind of going to have to keep looking
It's
off
all
to the
good.
side. So I
It happens.
apologize.
It happens. No worries.
Um, so kind of going along with that, do you think there's any misconceptions about trauma that you kind of wanted to clarify? Because there's one big one that I can see talking to you that I want to know if you notice it.
Um, I think for me, the biggest misconception about people that have gone through trauma is that they're damaged. And to me, I don't see that at all. To me, I came out of that looking for something more, to help me just continue to move forward. And because of um, all the things that I had to go through, like Insight, and bringing my friend group together, and finding Marissa and finding all these friends. To me, it was I had I had damage. I mean, I had baggage. I didn't have damage. I just had the baggage that I had to get rid of, and then I could be free and move forward. So I think for me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that when people come out of trauma, they're damaged, and maybe some of them are, I guess. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was just me getting rid of that baggage, finding myself again, and doing whatever I needed to do to move forward, and start my business, and make my life better. You know.
One that I kind of wanted to touch upon, and here at the collective, mainly I focus on female trauma because obviously I'm a female, and having gone through trauma, I relate very well to women who have experienced some sort of trauma. One of the misconceptions that I see is that it doesn't happen to men.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
And that's why I really, even though I am out there and I say that this is mostly for female trauma survivors, it's not that I'm trying to avoid men. Um, and I'm not trying to perpetuate that misconception that it only happens to women and not men, which is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because this is trauma like this is universal.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't happen to one over the other.
Mhm.
And I applaud the fact that you are willing to come and talk about it, because I think that's part of the reason why my collective, like I said, being female, I'm going to focus more on women, but part of the reason why I don't talk a lot about male trauma is very few men that it happened to are willing to come forward.
Right. And that's understandable.
There's a stigma that,
Yes.
they have to be these big macho people and they can't talk about it. So that was one of my little sly ways of having you on here, to let other men know that
Right.
it's okay to talk about it. It does not make you less than.
Mhm.
And you said it beautifully. You're not damaged.
Yeah, I'm
Not
not.
damaged at all.
And I, you know, trauma, it affects men just as much as it does women. And, if you don't accept your trauma and do something about it, and if you're too macho about it and you don't want to talk to anybody about it or whatever, um, all you're really doing is hurting yourself, because you're letting it dwell inside you, and then you build up resentment and you build up hurt, and all those things. And it's, to me, I understand what you say about, you focus mostly on women, but um, I'm here to tell other men, listen, it's okay if you need to talk about the things that you're going through, especially if you're dealing with, a narcissist, because they can break you down.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they do it a little bit at a time,
Yeah.
and it builds up and it builds up, and before you know it, you're not even the man you were when you first met. You're this completely different person. And I think for a man, one of the biggest things that is hard for them is if they lose themselves, because it's so hard to refine yourself again, right? And if you just recognize that you are going through trauma, and it isn't just a macho thing, and that you have the courage to go out there and find help, or just talk to somebody about it, it can make your life so much more enlightened and happy and fulfilled.
Right.
Because if you dwell in that, all it does is hold you back.
Right. Because when you're dwelling in it, you're basically allowing in my opinion, again, not a doctor or a therapist, when you dwell in it, you're letting that trauma define you.
Exactly. Yes.
And, ultimately we need to heal from that and move forward. I believe everybody has some sort of trauma, big or little.
Mhm.
Um, you use that and you go forward with it.
Mhm.
There's an analogy, and I don't know, I'm blanking on the word. I believe it's in the Asian culture when things are broken and you kind of piece them back together.
Oh, kintsugi.
Kintsugi, thank you.
Yes.
That's what this is like.
Yeah,
So you're piecing yourself back together. It does not mean that you're damaged. You
that's
can
right.
come out a much more beautiful
That's right.
person.
That Listen, regardless of what you've gone through, once you put yourself back together, you realize, what, I'm starting a new life. It doesn't have to be perfect. I can have flaws, and the people that are around me that I want to have around me, they'll accept me for whatever those imperfections and flaws are. It makes me more beautiful. It
Yes.
makes me more beautiful inside. It gives me more of an opportunity to make a bigger impact on my friends and my family, and my community. So, it's all about what you make of it,
Yes.
and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the biggest impact that I can, and just creating this person that I've always wanted to be. Having that meaning and having purpose in my life.
Well, I think that you are doing a splendid job, and I thank you immensely for agreeing to come again and dive a little bit more into the trauma because I think it's important for people to see. And I truly, truly appreciate you helping me advocate that other men, it's safe to
Yes.
come and step forward and not let it define you.
Yes.
So again, Nesto, I really appreciate you coming here. And I'm sorry I was teasing you about mispronouncing your name.
I know.
It was probably inappropriate of me, but
No, it's okay.
I think that's a little bonding thing between you and I
Right.
now.
Right. Well, I always love talking with you, Rebecca. And if you ever need me to come back, I'll be here.
Okay. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you so
Well,
much for having me.
you're welcome. And I thank you for being here. And I hope everybody has a fabulous day. So cheers, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye bye.